This week's episode is a very special episode. For today, I'm celebrating the anniversary of when my mother was first hit with a vicious voodoo curse that led to my very existence. I say celebrate. Really, all I'm doing is using this as an excuse to talk about something I really want to talk about, even though by this point it's probably had all the coverage it needs and it's probably made all the sales it's ever going to make. But, I love this game I'm about to talk about, and I want to talk about it. I've already talked about it on this channel before. If you look back through my history, you'll probably guess what the game is, but I want to give it some proper coverage today, because I love this game. I want to have babies with this game. If we were in prison, I would happily be this game's bitch. That's how much I love it. I'm speaking, of course, of Borderlands. No, I'm not. I'm speaking of Dark Souls 3. Never speaking of Borderlands. If you've looked back on this channel, as I might have suggested to do during my Hellpoint talk, you'll know that I have a keenness for Dark Souls 3. It's one of my favourite games of all times, and probably my favourite in the Dark Souls series. I basically fell in love with it when my friend randomly suggested I give it a try, and, well, I didn't know much about the Dark Souls series at that point. I had, at best, listened to some videos discussing the lore, and I'll admit some interest, but I heard about the game's monstrous difficulties, and as someone who's destroyed countless PlayStation 4 controllers, I didn't know if I really wanted to try it out yet. I expected to give up before the first boss and throw something through a window, because that's happened more times than I care to count. I was genuinely surprised by how well I took to the game. Yes, the first boss was beating me into the ground, yes, it was monstrously difficult even before I cleared the first bloody stage, but there was something about it that I just couldn't abandon then. There was something about this game that I really liked. First of all, it was the combat. I liked the feel of the combat, the rolling, the attacking. Something about it just felt so weighty and, engaging. It's not like Skyrim where you just swing a sword vaguely in the direction of a monster and the monster takes damage. Well, maybe Skyrim's a bad example. I haven't played it for years, so I can't be certain if that's actually true. I don't remember anything about Skyrim, to be honest. I know the rest of the world seems to have fallen deeply in love with it, but I just never could get on with it. It wasn't my sort of game, and that's fine. Dark Souls 3 is, believe it or not, the third game in the Dark Souls franchise. I'll stop if that's too mind-blowing for you. It's the third game in a series, and it's probably the absolute height of the series in terms of mechanics, and I suppose in terms of plot. I do enjoy the story of Dark Souls 3 a lot more than I enjoyed the story of Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. Not to say either of the previous games are bad, I just preferred 3, although maybe because it was my introduction to the series, and I feel like that was probably the better option, because I found this game a lot easier than its predecessors. It was definitely more accessible, and I think that's what gives it the extra edge. I find the multiplayer a lot easier to deal with in Dark Souls 3 than in the previous two games. In Dark Souls 1, because you can't fast travel until like halfway through the game, and because of the whole soul level thing, I couldn't really play with friends until I got the remastered edition, and, well, not everyone wants to rebuy a game that hasn't even been remastered that well. In Dark Souls 2, I couldn't find a password system, so we couldn't play together even if I had friends who wanted to play that game, which was even harder, because that game was considered to be the worst in the Dark Souls series. I don't get why. It's probably not, it's not the best in the series. Okay, but, I guess I kind of do see why it's the worst in the series, but that doesn't mean it's a bad game, it's just the weakest Souls title. But I'll tell you this, I will take the weakest Souls title over most AAA ilk that comes out these days. In Dark Souls, you play as a nameless, accursed undead on a quest for, linking the fire, or usurping the fire. It's kind of up to you. The world of Dark Souls exists in this cycle where the flame must be linked in order to preserve this dying age. But, as you do your research into the game, as you learn more and more about the history of the world, you might be forced to question whether or not that's the best decision to make. Because on my first playthrough I definitely linked to fire, but after I did even more research, I wondered if I had made the right choice for the world of Dark Souls, and we don't get to see it no matter what happens when the game ends. And I think that makes a certain level of impact. We don't get to actually see the consequences because that's where our journey ends. We've made a choice for the world and we don't really get to live with that choice. One of the things I like most about Dark Souls is the way you can build your character. So you can start as a knight or a warrior or a mage or a naked fuck with a stick if you really want to. But from there, you can level up whatever stats you like, use whatever weapons you like, forge your own path. It's not restrictive in any way, shape or form because of this. When I very first started the game, I started as a lowly knight with a sword, a shield and just enough smarts to use them. By the end of the game, my woman was throwing lightning spears at demons, she was wielding a greatsword about half the length of the Eiffel Tower, and was still rolling with the speed of a tumbleweed in a storm. It felt great, quite frankly. It felt great. Because I built this character, I really liked this character, I found the best armour, the best weapons, and yes, I started as a knight, but I had access to so many spells, so many miracles, and man, I just love this game. I think it does stuff so well. The multiplayer in this game is one of the few multiplayers in a game that I will engage with, even if there are some parts of it I really fucking dislike. Mostly it's the invasions I don't care for. I don't like being an invader, it just makes me feel like a bit of a prick to kill someone who's trying to make progress. And I don't like being invaded, because the few times I can kill an invader, yeah, it's alright I suppose, but most of the time I seem to die and their weapon seems to be about a mile away from me, yet still dealing damage. It's the sort of thing that takes me out of the experience, and I'm taken out of it even more when the people go online to defend this sort of thing, like, oh, it's part of the game. Yeah, well, cancer's a part of life, but we still want to get rid of cancer, don't we? I'm not saying all Dark Souls invaders are cancer, I'm just saying a lot of them are. But let's get back on topic, let's get back to the rest of the game I want to talk about. There's so much to praise in this game, it looks great. I mean, don't get me wrong, Dark Souls has never been the most graphically amazing series, and that's fine, because it looks fine anyway. It looks great. Dark Souls 3 looks the best in the series. Even if its environments are a little bit samey, there's plenty of cathedrals, and I'm not entirely sure why there has to be so many, because the one thing I like about the original Dark Souls was its environmental variation. One moment you could be walking through a decrepit little village, getting attacked by vicious zombie dogs. The next moment, you're in a kingdom of the gods with giant knights swinging huge halberds at you and huge gargoyles running around everywhere and getting pelted by arrow snipers. Then you go deep below the earth and see the old chaos. You see a city buried so far below the earth, surrounded by lava and demons, and there's this tree at one point that just descends down and down to a lake, deep underground, where we get to see these giant trees everywhere and this big hydra just swimming around. There's so much about the game's environments in Dark Souls 1 that I love. I just wish that the remaster had maybe done a little bit more to make it more accessible, because I still can't play it all the way through. I have finished Dark Souls 3 more times than I've willingly done my own laundry. I've created about, I think in the course of the game, on both my PC version and my PlayStation version, I've created upwards of about 60 characters. Not all of them are around today, some of them were deleted or I lost the data to during a rage quit. It happens. It does happen. But, you know, we pick ourselves back up. My main character has at least 300 hours on her playthrough, and she's in the Journey 5. You can restart the game once you finish it in the whole New Game Plus model, which is great. You get to keep all your spells and equipment, and you get to just kick the game's ass in the second go around, and I love that. It's also got some pretty amazing DLC, even if the first DLC is a bit short, but I think that the crowning aspect of this game, the crowning aspect of any Dark Souls game, should be the boss fights, and in Dark Souls 3 it most certainly is. See, Dark Souls 1 had a unique set of bosses enough, but they were all a bit basic and fairly easy to defeat, because the slower pace of the game meant most of them were, well, naturally quite slow and easy to predict. With the exception of the final boss, but because I accidentally brought a phantom with me, he was made into a complete chump. Dark Souls 3 bosses are quite varied and interesting. The first one, for example, just looks like a standard dude with a giant halberd, but when you get him down to half health, he just explodes into a giant snot monster that beats you up and down the garden path. I kept dying at that phase when I first started the game. These days I can knock him off fairly easily, and I like it. I like that I'm at the place where I could just knock out most of these bosses in one go. But I also like that some of them can still challenge me. On my most recent playthrough on my PlayStation 4 system, I died to the second boss this morning. About twice now, I think. I can't be real sure, I'll have to double check that. But I like that, again, he can still challenge me in some way, and that's why I keep coming back to the game series, because no matter how good I think I've got on at the game, it still has a few tricks up its sleeve. Don't get me wrong, sometimes I wouldn't mind if there was a way to lower the difficulty for days when I really can't be bothered, but still want to play a Souls-like, but we know where that argument goes, don't we? We know what all the get-gooders will say. Those are the sort of people that I don't really view as people. I view them in the same way you might view a tapeworm that's covered in the shit of a nearby horny cow. So, you know, they're not really worth considering, you know, you just need to know to avoid them. At the end of this all, I'm obviously going to recommend Dark Souls 3, I'm going to recommend the hell out of it. But I also understand if you don't like it and if you don't want to try it. See, the Dark Souls games are built for a specific type of player, a player who can deal with the sort of stress it's going to throw at you, and not everyone plays games for that sort of reason, and I completely understand that. If you're not having fun playing a game, don't play the game. I'm not going to say get good. You know, if anyone's actually interested in this game, game. If anyone wants some advice, I can even tell you what I've learned playing the game, and it won't just be the phrase, "get good," which was a fun gag for the first 15 minutes of its life, I'm sure, but it's now become fucking tedious. So Dark Souls 3 then, great game. Definitely recommend it. Give it a try if it looks like your sort of game, because it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. It's definitely worth it if you can get into it. That's the big if, though. If you can get into it. I'm not going to look at you differently for being bad at this game, because it's a monstrously difficult game. So that's my opinion on Dark Souls 3. It's a fairly positive one, I say. You know, I think I like the game. Might have given a subtle hint or two in the past that I love this game. Anyway, thanks for indulging me this week. Next week, I'm going to aim for a new game, if I have the money. Doing this is difficult when you're a poor piece of shit like me. But anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. This is Board Gamer signing off, and may the flames guide thee.